Everybody, and welcome. My name is Dr. Melanie Ludi. I'm the director of our Center for Faculty Development. I welcome you to today's program on challenges and solutions of partnering with the community. Just some housekeeping before I turn it over to our panelists is we will be recording in case that changes the way that you want to participate in this session today. After we are done with the session, I will send out the recording for you to use or distribute amongst your colleagues. Additionally, if you are a faculty member at USM, I'll be monitoring attendance so I can enter on your behalf your attendance and faculty success. And then just remember a great etiquette for online. Mute yourself. You're welcome to put questions in the chat and I'll help moderate the chat for our panelists. And with that, I'm excited to introduce you. I'll let Dr. Christy Kayser, the director of the Center for Civic and Community Engagement, kick us off with some introductions and get us started.
All right, great. Thank you, Melanie. So the impetus for today's presentation was really just that I know a lot of people are interested in doing community engaged research or community engaged teaching, which basically means partnering with community organizations. And so that can look like, partnering with somebody who, because they have access to the population that you might need, it might be that you all have similar causes in common. It also could be that you want your students to get experience that only they can provide, that we in the academy can't. And so I wanted to really let you all hear from some experts on that. And so I will introduce our panel. So we have Sharon, Dr. Sharon Young, who is an assistant professor in anthropology here at USM. And we have ShLanda Burton, who is the executive director of the National Birth Coalition. And as they speak, they can tell you a little bit more about what they do in those roles. And then I'm Christy Kayser, again, the director of USM Center for Community Engagement. My job on campus is primarily to provide support and training for people who want to do this type of work. And that looks like a bunch of different ways. That can be introductions to community, which one of the things Sharon and ShLanda will talk about is that they were fortunate to meet. They didn't need an introduction from me. But I also can just help you figure out how to incorporate this into your class, how to incorporate this into your research, but also how to do it ethically. And so at this point, I will turn it over to Sharon and ShLanda to kind of talk briefly about how it started and how it's going, basically what they do and what their partnership is all about.
Sure. Thank you, Christy. ShLanda, do you want to start or do you want me to tell them how we met?
You start.
All right. So I started here in 2021, 2022, that academic year, so 3-4 years ago. And at the end of that year, I did Christy's mini workshop about working with the community and doing service learning. And so I kind of knew I wanted to get out in the community and meet someone to work with. So I went to the Alabama Black Midwives Conference in Tuscaloosa that summer. And I knew kind of I wanted to do a project with food security during pregnancy and how that impacts the health of the mom and the children. And ShLanda was giving a presentation, and kind of at the end of her presentation, she made a comment. It almost seemed like an offhand comment about, if there's anyone who's interested in doing research on nutrition during pregnancy, I'd love to connect with you. And I was like, well, I think that's my cue. So I went up and met her afterward, and we exchanged information. And then to ShLanda's credit, she immediately got in touch with me, and she really got the ball rolling on our partnership. So we've been working together ever since then.
That's exactly right. I remember one of the first things, with the National Birth Coalition, it's our nonprofit here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So going to the midwifery conference, like Sharon was saying, was like, okay, this was, I don't know, still kind of in pandemic type time. So 2020, 2021, it's still kind of like, okay, you were kind of on the edge if you were going to a big conference, and it was a good size. But exactly what Sharon said, I did a presentation, and one of the parts of the presentations that I think Sharon was listening to was when I said we were doing placenta phage to placenta encapsulation. And one of the things I do in the community is I do birth doula work. So working as a birth worker, placenta encapsulation, it wasn't just a trend. There was a lot of research that Sharon had done in the area. So I was immediately like, oh, she is like really somebody that has the knowledge to give us a lot more background on what, the placenta is about, a lot more information on, the benefits, the risk. And that's information that the community needed. So it wasn't just a trend. It was like the real person that had the knowledge. So that was one of the big things that really struck out to me, with not just Sharon's interest in the maternity field, but like the real relevant things that people cared about learning about and knowing more about.
And so now we're doing research together. We've submitted a grant proposal to do some work together that would be very applied in the birth worker community. So we've started a few years ago with kind of this idea of we want to do these things together, and we built out a long-term plan, and we're now starting to implement that plans, and we can talk about that along the way.
Great. I already have so many questions that I want to ask you, but hopefully we'll cover it as we get to the next slides. So the first thing that of course came to mind was your concerns about working with each other, and what that might be. But maybe that's something that we can talk about as we move forward. So if you all could talk to us a little bit about what are the benefits of academics and community members working together.
So from my perspective, go ahead, ShLanda.
I was just going to say that, the first thing that jumps to my mind of the benefits is kind of like what I just said, having the relevant resources and education and research to kind of back exactly what is relevant in our communities. That was the first thing that jumps out to me. There's, I guess building that trust up was one of the major things that we had to kind of look at. And, I'm in North Carolina. I met Sharon, back then that, for a few hours that day. So really building up rapport with each other was one of the major things that I think we had to do pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Part of the benefits too for an academic of working with a community partner is not just trust with that partner, but trust in the community. So if you want to do work that involves people in the community, they don't know you, you're a researcher, they don't know your agenda. We all are familiar with, the CITI training that we all have to go through, where communities have been, not necessarily treated well by all researchers. And so one of the big benefits of working with a community partner is once you've built trust with that partner, they have trust in the community. And like ShLanda said, we have complementary skills, complementary resources, complementary perspectives. So I'm coming from an academic research perspective, and that's my training. But ShLanda's in the day-to-day working with community birth workers, pregnant people, people in the community who are experiencing the things that I'm interested in studying and working with. And so when we're working together, it's our experiences and knowledge and training are integrated. So it's not like, here's the thing I can do for you. What can you do for me? It's how can we work together to make this thing we're both interested in happen? And that's something, we've done, probably many of you have done interdisciplinary collaborations. It's similar to that, but outside of academia. That was a terrible analogy, but you're integrating these different perspectives was what I was getting at.
Absolutely. And also the other thing is that whatever research you are discovering is going to be more effective whenever it's actually implemented, because it's based on the real perspectives of the people that ShLanda is working with. And also, if they feel like they contributed to those research findings, then they're going to be more willing to accept that information too. And that is definitely something that research shows about community engaged research, is that it's more effective when implemented.
Yes.
All right. So advice from the pros. So what are some, and I guess this is more, well, really both of you can answer this. So what are some important things that academics should keep in mind in order to have effective partnerships with community organizations?
I think first and foremost for me, it's equity. This is a partnership. This is not, this isn't me going in and saying, what can I do for you that I can get something out of? We are partnered and doing this together. So along with that comes recognizing the strengths of the community. So a lot of times, we've been doing our research on a particular topic or area for a very long time. We have a lot of expertise and content knowledge. And so sometimes we might think we know what the answer is, or might think we know what a community needs or what would be best for the population that we're working with. But we have to remember that we don't know that. We are working with the community partner because they're experts too. So just remembering that this is an equitable partnership instead of a like research relationship or research exchange, I think has gone a long way for us. And making sure to respect kind of the needs of the community partner. So we operate a little bit differently in academia, and the people in the community, especially with nonprofits, they are working in a system where they need things like grant support to support their organizations, and they have this is their job. So if we go in and say, hey, I want to work with you, I need you to do all of these things to support this research project, well, they might not have the time or resources to do that. So we need to be very respectful of the fact that we get paid regardless of what happens with that project. They don't. So we need to be aware that any time they're spending working with us is time away from their organization. So it needs to be worth their while to invest in it.
Like sometimes I'm thinking I could piggyback off of what Sharon says, but honestly, our minds do like this. So it really is exactly what she said. When we're working with community and different other, just say nonprofit organizations in that we have a network with, other parents, other families that we network with in our communities, those are things that when I say I hold very close to my chest, very tight relationships, and people that trust me. And I train now other doulas, other birth workers in the community. So those are trusted partnerships and relationships that have been built over years in communities. So when you're talking about, partnering, it's not just the person or the organization, it's mothers, it's fathers, it's grandparents, it's aunts and uncles, that we really truly have that village mentality. And this is the whole village that comes with the nonprofit, not just, and not just the individual, not just the organization, but it is an entire village. And I think sometimes people can separate, an institution from the actual community. But when you're merging all of this together, these are families, these are children, these are people. And I think one of the things that I really enjoy with Sharon is we're in this for the long term. This is not a hit it and quit it type situation. Mm-hmm. This is a, years on building upon building relationships together. So this means a lot, and it's a lot of commitment with a lot of people that trust us, especially as birth workers in the community.
And one of the first things that we did, I should have mentioned this, is ShLanda and I put together an MOU. So we put together an agreement that said, here are our roles, our responsibilities, our expectations for each other. When we do research and publish or present, how are we going to divide authorship? How will we determine, who's in charge of which part of the project? So we kind of laid out kind of the basic framework for how we will work together. And that goes a long way for building trust, I think, because it shows, I care about you as a partner, and I know that you need to be protected too, but it also gives you a framework to work from to say, this is what we've agreed to, so let's, operate this way or make amendments if we need to.
100%, 100%. And it is an equitable thing. When I'm coming with skills, Sharon's coming with skills, and the work that needs to be done it's a lot easier when you have that framework, you know, and those guidelines that you collaborated to put together. And I will say it was not a quick, you know, type of situation. We took, I want to say, was it maybe almost close to a year
I think we finalized everything after a year, but we had the framework pretty much in place after a few months. I would say we were just tweaking things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's not a quick thing to build those relationships and build those agreements and understanding together. And I do say taking the time that, again, when Sharon was talking about it takes time away from doing other things, it does, but it's worth it. To me, it has been 100% worth it to see where we've been and to see where we're going together. It has been 100% worth it.
And I think, Christy, you have a copy of our MOU and then probably other samples if people want an example.
I do, yeah, and I was actually going to bring that up, is that, you know, a lot of times when we see MOUs, especially like on the university, like legal side, they're very much like hold harmless and like I'm not going to sue you and, you know, things like that. But this type of MOU is really like what Sharon was saying. It outlined the roles and the responsibilities and how they were going to handle certain situations like authorship and things like that. But yes, I do have a copy of y'all's MOU, and then we also have a copy of I'll give a shout out to Maria Wallace and the Hattiesburg Zoo. And that MOU was actually signed by our VPR's office. And so that was something that was endorsed by them. So we do have some really great samples that we can share. One thing I wanted to ask Sharon about was earlier you had said something about making sure that that ShLanda is compensated for her time, because we get paid regardless, you know, of whether we do this or not, but ShLanda might not. Has there been anything that you've kind of figured out about how to make sure that that happens?
Yes and no. So that's one of the biggest challenges. We have a grant proposal that's under review right now, and we're developing another one. So we are looking for external funding to support salary for ShLanda and then obviously the projects. But in lieu of that, until we're actually able to fund like financial compensation, when we work on something, I'm very clear with her, like, I don't want you doing more work than you have time to or want to. So if there are things like the project that we're doing right now is a survey that's administered through the internet. And so it can easily be incorporated into the activities that ShLanda's already doing in terms of recruitment. So it's a minimal time impact. And the other thing is helping out where we can. So my GAs have helped with some tasks that she's needed for her organization that also help our research. I placed one of my students or helped place one of my students in an internship with her. And so there are also other kinds of support that we can provide that are, you know, not necessarily financial, but that help ease that time burden so that it makes it feasible to participate in these collaborative activities more than it would be otherwise. So ultimately, though, we need to get funded so that we can do the big projects that we want to do.
Right. Absolutely.
Exactly what Sharon said. It's a nice balance, and it has been a nice balance with the nonprofit, especially in the community, having a student be able to come in and help with some of the tasks, just like you would want, you know, with a volunteer, being able to have someone to come and assist with some of the things that really does help a nonprofit in a variety of ways. But I really enjoyed even having the students being able to work with me. And again, it's one of those things where you definitely, and I definitely realize, you know, again, that's one of those equity things. That's one of those balance things that's added and value added to a partnership. So I really do appreciate even like all the things that come with this.
Yeah. And also one of the easy things that I sometimes do is I'll review materials that ShLanda's going to post to her website, or like I put together resources for placentophagy that she can use, or we'll look over other stuff that she's working on. So there are other things that we can do too to be a good partner that might not necessarily be a part of the work that we're doing together, but that again help with some of the time commitments in other places that would make it easier to work with us.
And I will say, even that research, when I tell you people in the community, they want to be able to have access to the work that has been done, that's been researched, that's evidence and science based. And to have somebody have access to Sharon's research and what she does and what the university provides as research is critical with, again, building trust with those universities, with those communities. It's a perfect partnership to get even your whatever your niche is, if it's nursing, if it's social work, whatever that other, dietetics, which happens to be what my field is in nutrition and dietetics. It's about getting that information to the communities. That's a resource for them. They have the real quality information they deserve.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And not just publishing in academic journals, but getting that information out there. Super important. All right. So where to start? How do you even find partners? So obviously you all found each other at a conference, but you might have suggestions otherwise.
Yeah, for faculty here, to go to Christy. That's where you need to start. She knows everyone in the community. She will know who to connect you with and how to connect you and how they, what format they like to use to communicate. Like, she knows everything. Definitely do her training series that she has, the mini training. I think it's every at the end of every fall and every spring, right? You do it twice a year?
End of every fall. Mm-hmm.
Oh, every fall. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's when I did it. I don't remember.
I used to do it in May, but people are just so done in May
Okay.
that, yeah, I started just doing it in December. So it's like December 12th, 13th, 14th, right after grades are due.
Yeah. And it's actually a really fun way to cap off the semester too, because you're like, you don't have to think about all of the semester stuff and you can just focus on the fun community stuff, which if you're going, you obviously find that interesting.
Right.
The other thing is her service learning fellows program. Highly recommend. There's just so much good information about working with the community and how to incorporate that into your classes and how to really maximize the benefit to students through service learning in your teaching. That program was also excellent. So here, start with Christy.
Thank you.
And then get out in the community, or at the same time. You do need to talk to people. I was joking earlier that, like, after I did Christy's workshop, I was like, okay, I've got to go actually talk to people and put myself out there, because that's how you meet people. So getting out in the world too is really important.
ShLanda, do you have suggestions?
I honestly, I would look, when I tell you, I remember the day coming from the community organization type perspective. I remember at the very last minute, before we were about to close the presentation in Alabama at the midwifery conference, I did say, if anybody wants to do research and work with maternal health, I remember just realizing, okay, before I started, I will say this last thing. I will say that last word of encouragement. And, you get what you ask for. And my intention that day was to ask. I didn't know who was in the audience that day. There was hundreds of people at this conference. I didn't know who was listening to me, but I felt like I was heard when I made set the question out there. I felt like I was heard, and immediately, acting upon the people that are interested in what you're interested in, and partnering that way. Honestly, you have to say something or nobody will know, that you're interested in moving towards research or any of the things. So yeah, just making it very clear. And then, like we were talking about, moving forward with the contracts, moving forward with the communication styles and learning each other. I think us sitting back and talking about, well, what are your goals? Well, these are my goals. These are my organization's goals. And when it comes to participants, and especially in the community, being very open and honest with the community about what your intentions are with them. And just being there as a sounding board for your community when they do have questions. Like, I'm in North Carolina, she's in Mississippi. How does this work? Just being very transparent. A lot of people say that word, but it really is a lot of very clear, transparent conversations that we have with our community, but also with each other.
So one of the things that I know you all do is you were just talking about a survey. And so that's something I get all the time is people wanting to work with me because they know I have contacts in the community. And so they think that like I can magically send information out and community people are going to respond. So how what is y'all's advice for getting community input whenever you need information from them?
ShLanda's on the board of like every organization related to food in the Winston-Salem area and also maternal health. And so she brings a lot of information from the community to our discussions. So because she is so plugged in and connected, that's where we get most of the contacts with potential participants or kind of get a pulse on what's going on in the community that needs attention or that the community wants to look at. So I would say, honestly, ShLanda is probably the place that we get most of our participants and information about them.
And it does make a difference, like what the person's in the community's niche is. My particular background, like I said, is nutrition and dietetics and the birth field with birth workers. It really helps to have that organization that has those and has built those community connections for a while. I think it would be kind of difficult to do this if you are just starting out. You have to have some type of background, some type of solid foundation of the organization's person that you're working with. And it was an interesting time to start with the pandemic and everything going on with changes in academia, changes in community, and of course, when you're working with birthing people, changes in the hospital policies. So having somebody that's a partner or participant in these community things, you want to make sure that they are well-rounded, just with whatever your niche is, making sure that we're well-rounded and grounded in the community. And that literally has taken a long time. I'm not a spring chicken by any means, but I'd probably say a good 25 years of the background in my field has really built a strong foundation and a network. And that's what people want to find. Your partner needs that network and that foundation in the community. And I'm just really grateful that I was able to find Sharon and Sharon was able to find me to put this together.
If your partner doesn't necessarily have an extensive network, maybe they're newer to that area, again, Christy, she will know other people you can contact, and she can't manifest a list, like she said, of all the people in the community who will immediately respond, but she can probably connect you with people who'd be willing to help promote what you're doing or, getting increased engagement with whatever it is that you're doing. So definitely, again, use Christy's channels and connections because she'll point you to the right people.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll say about this, and I might have another question about this, is just like there needs to be an incentive for people to respond to surveys. And also, like your community partner, a lot of times will not send out that information if they don't believe that you will hold that information with integrity. So again, those partnerships are so important because I've had people say, can you put this flyer out, so that people will respond to my survey? And I could send it to people who have access to those populations, but they don't know that researcher from Adam. And so they don't know they don't know what they're going to do with that data. And because, like ShLanda was saying, she holds those connections and those families and those babies and everything so dear, she's not going to do anything to endanger them. And so that those partnerships and trust is so important.
Mm-hmm.
So are there certain communication methods or styles that you have found to be most effective for your long distance relationship?
Yes, definitely. Video calls are crucial for us. We've not scheduled one recently, but we had a regular, once a month, every couple of weeks, standing virtual meeting where we would just check in. Didn't have to be long, just what are we doing? Where are we at? What do we want to accomplish before we meet again? And then this I'm sure is true of a lot of different community partners. They'll have another preferred method, probably not email, probably text for communication. So we'll do, depending on what it is that we're communicating, we'll use text or email. So if it's like the grant proposal, we're obviously using email to coordinate with that because it's larger bodies of text. But if we just have a quick check-in or question or something, we'll do text messages.
I think for me, what was I guess really the real effective thought process with everything was when things came together, and I came to Mississippi. And I was able to meet you, Christy, and I was able to meet faculty, and I was able to meet the students that I'm working with now. And that to me was just like, wow, this is a real tangible. It was already there, but being able to see and really dig deeper in the community in Mississippi, and it really meant a lot to me to be able to see and meet other people. Even though, Sharon's great, but being able to meet her colleagues, being able to see what that community was like, it really helped a lot with me being more effective and understanding where this partnership can go in the future and in other departments like that. That was really important to me this summer.
Yeah, we did try to actually form a partnership with another department as well, in nutrition, actually, which is, of course, ShLanda's background. And it was totally personal reasons that didn't move forward, but we hope that it still will. So that is the possibility also, is that once you have a really strong foundational partnership, it's possible to grab people from other disciplines too, who might be able to benefit from the partnership as well.
Yeah.
Is there a pitch that you have to give, do you think? Why would it be important to understand why non-academics would want to partner with the university? It didn't sound like you had to do much convincing, Sharon. But what advice would you have for people approaching partners?
I guess I could start with this, because honestly, when non-academics wants to partner, in my opinion, it's very important to meet people where they are. Okay. Previously working in research, I was misdirected, I want to say, kind of misguided. So I guess the reality is, I was in the place with the nonprofit world that I really wanted to implement. So when it comes to non-academics, our nonprofit wanting to partner, my other part of this was, what do you want to implement? Because we are the boots on the ground organization that wants to help you implement. So that would be kind of my pitch. If you want to partner with community, let us help you implement, and you help us with the work that's the most relevant and incredible information that you have. So yeah, that would be my pitch. Let's implement together,
That is an awesome response. Sharon, any follow-up?
From From my perspective, I would say also make sure that you are clear and transparent, like we've talked about already. When you approach a community partner, tell them what your goal is. Don't try to pretend that it's something it's not to get them on board, because collaboration will fall apart. So make sure that you're clear about what it is that why you want to partner with the community, and let them know that your missions, are aligned. Presumably, if they're not, then they're probably not the right partner for you. But yeah, I love that idea of implementing together, because that's why we're working with community, why the community wants to work with us.
All right. So how have you decided what to work on and how to proceed after you initially decided to work together?
We both have kind of a big vision for what we want to do together, and we've kind of mapped out what the long-term goals are for us, and the type of work that we'd like to do, and the type of programs that we'd like to develop and implement with the community. So we know kind of the overarching map and the long-term goal, but we also know, like I mentioned before, there's just the reality of time constraints, monetary constraints, that we can't dive right into that right now. So we have started working on smaller attainable pieces of the puzzle. So right now, the project that we're doing, where we're surveying doulas, is asking them about their nutrition training and their experience providing nutrition advice and guidance to their clients, so that we can develop a program that we will then implement, assess, and hopefully be able to improve to increase nutritional recommendations and nutritional health of pregnant people. So it's part of that longer goal, that bigger project, but it's a very small piece that we can do right now with the resources and time and things that we have available.
I think just like a little snapshot, for example, our nonprofit here in North Carolina, just last night, Sharon. Yeah, last night we did a presentation of a film that we executive produced called Bloom. And one of the things that I can do, just a little piece, is the movie is based off of birth workers, lactation consultants, pretty much anybody in the birthing space and healthcare. And what we decided to do with this particular piece was to work together. The survey that we put together is part of what we show and provide as a survey to the people that come and see the film. So again, that's just one piece of the puzzle, but it's a nice piece that we blended together with the work that doesn't take a lot to send out the survey to people that are already doing the work in the community. So again, it's pieces, but it's also the most important pieces when you have people in a group that are willing and ready to take your surveys. That's the community piece that a lot of academia would not have access to. So we build it and it's really working. It's working in the community. People are getting the education and the foundation, and we definitely can continue to do this this way. And I enjoy it. I like being able to bring out a survey with people I already know are interested in the subject matter. So it goes together perfectly how we've been working together so far.
You might have already answered this about funding constraints, time constraints. So I don't know. Is there anything else you want to add about what has impacted your plans?
I think it really just hinges on what can we afford to do, what do we have the time to do. So once we're able to fund bigger projects, we can set those big plans in motion. But in the meantime, we're going to do what we can with what we have available. So.
All right. So what have been some challenges that you have worked through?
Well, there's definitely the remote collaboration, which has worked for us, but there are certainly challenges with, like, even the time zone difference, for example, where every once in a while I'll forget to account for that. And so I'll miss a meeting or something, which seems small, but when you have limited time, your community partner has all kinds of things going on in their life, like changing the time of a meeting by an hour can, be problematic. So that's been one issue. And then, of course, just the coming from different places, I have an academic mindset. I've been in academia for over a decade now. So sometimes I have to remember the community doesn't work that way. Nonprofits are not on academic time. We're not experiencing the same thing in our day to day. And so getting into that community nonprofit mindset when we're having our conversations has been kind of challenging, might be the wrong word, but it's just something that you have to keep in mind, that it's not the same as talking to another colleague that you might be collaborating with at another institution, for example, because the structures are different, the things that they're experiencing and their practice is different.
100%. I say the same thing. It's like being community focused and community minded. I have to think, okay, this is academia, they got a calendar, they got a schedule, they got a time. It's not this kind of free flow type, the times are very different in community. And it's kind of like, if anybody's had a child or had a baby, other than, when there's that set time that, the doctor says you have that child, if you're having a child that you don't know when the baby's going to come sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So it could be a week, it could be a 2-week wait, it could be early, so understanding time in community has been one of my big challenges when I look at academia and the schedule. The semester starts then, the semester ends then, the summer is here, and I'm like, the time goes by so fast. But I think that working through that is, again, that communication, text message, cell phone, just using the technologies that's available to really help each other understand, I got this going on this week with the family, I got that going on. But for me, it's definitely working through by having that open communication and dialogue. And like I said, being transparent with going on in my life or this academic year. It's definitely something that I've learned, to really be respectful of. And I think Sharon has as well with our lives, just really balancing that out together.
Well, and in terms of kind of different environments and different time schedules and whatnot, one of the things that I have to also be mindful of is when we're applying for grants, for example, the nonprofit world grant cycle is also very different than ours. If we want to apply for an NSF, if we submit an NSF proposal, we have to go through these very systematic processes, and we have to go through RRA and work with our grant coordinator and everything. And they're very set ways that we have to submit proposals. But if we're going for a non-federal grant, like a private foundation, and ShLanda's the PI because it's going to primarily support her nonprofit, there aren't those there's not that same bureaucracy that we have in the institution. And so the one that we have under review right now, I remember being kind of shocked that we were submitting it so quickly, because I was like, oh wait, we can just do this. We don't have to put in a white paper first and then get approval to do it. And even though we are still supposed to, just keep in mind, go through the university to do these, it is a little bit different when it's a grant to support the community partner. So that was something that was challenging for me to wrap my mind around, was the bureaucracy here is different than what the community is dealing with. And so we can't just say, let's just apply for this next month. There's a lot more planning that goes into it on our end.
And that's a good segue to the next question, which is, would you consider any of these challenges as institutional barriers? How do we change these institutional barriers? Is there a way?
Honestly, we have such good support in place here through Christy's office and through our IRB is, I mean, people probably don't say this a lot, but I think our IRB is phenomenal. And like getting ShLanda on this project was not really challenging at all, where have had challenges at previous institutions working with the community and getting all of their training. And you have to get like letters from them that say what they will and won't commit to. And they've really streamlined that process for us here. So our institution itself actually has a lot of support to help make these collaborations happen. But there are some barriers that just, again, like financial, if there was some seed money to give a stipend to community partners, that might help free up some of ShLanda's time to be able to work on our projects that would then give us data to apply for bigger grants that would be more likely to be funded. So something like that would be really helpful. I don't know that I'd call that a barrier, but I think academia is still kind of figuring out what it means to have a community partner. And so knowing what people need to get those relationships started is just probably taking time to build up. But again, Christy's office has done a great job of making it easy to implement these relationships and start working with community.
Well, and the work that you've done with ORA and IRB also, that's paving the pathway forward also. So the more that we have these partnerships and that we're doing these activities, the more we have precedent and ways to do it and procedures. So definitely appreciate everything that you all have done.
Thanks.
ShLanda, did you have anything to add to that particular question?
I honestly like things have been really smooth from the first time that I had to like complete city training, things like that. Just like it was real smooth to be able to do some of the things. So I honestly, it's kind of like Sharon knows and has navigated, and you navigate it. So that's the part where I really lean on y'all. And when I tell you, it just seems so smooth. So I don't know the institutional part of things, but I do know it has really been an important segue, for example, to be able to have the city trainings. That's important information that community needs to be able to even start the process. And you all made it really, really easy to be able to go through some of that educational basics, for community to know. So no, that so far has been really good for me. And like I said, just, the barriers, not so much when you have a team of people with like you all to help navigate. So that's been good.
And we have a bit of an unfair advantage because ShLanda does have an academic background and was in a master's program doing research. So she kind of understands these, like the red tape that we have to go through, even if it wasn't something she necessarily went through before. I'm not sure everyone in the community would be familiar with that. So making sure to explain like, this is what we have to do and this is why probably would go a long way. But we, like I said, had a little bit of an advantage there with ShLanda.
That's a really good point. Yeah, a lot of our nonprofits that we work with are just private citizens and or really grassroots organizations. And then that can be super challenging to tell them that they have all these steps that they need to complete.
Yeah. A 3-hour training that you have to do before you can be on this project that you're, perfectly qualified to do can be daunting, I think.
Right. All right. And as we wrap up, I wanted to kind of talk about this concept of do no harm, which is something that I preach about every day when we talk about the university approaching the community. So what are precautions and things to avoid maybe that academics should be aware of to ensure that we are helping and not hurting all of these community issues? Big question.
You go first.
Oh, sure.
No, you go first, Sharon, because I'm still. This is not an easy question.
Yeah, It's not, because so we, you know, in the academic world, we want to do work that helps people. We want to do work that has a positive impact. And so it's really easy to go into this type of research and this type of collaboration saying, I'm going to help people who need this thing. But like I said before, we have to remember that we don't always know what the community needs. We don't know what's best for them. We have a lot of information that we can share that can be helpful. But if you go in with an agenda and say, this is the problem I'm going to fix, and this is how I'm going to fix it, I just need that person in the community to get me in, that's incredibly harmful. You're basically telling people what they need, and that's not a healthy relationship. So trying to remember, like, we have all of this great information. We need to use it to collaborate with the community and support them in doing the things that they want done, that also line up with our own mission and goals. I think it was the service learning class where we talked a lot about even using the term help and how problematic that can be. That, like, if you go into the community and say you want to help them, then that's already giving yourself this kind of privileged position of the person who has the knowledge, has the information, has a better understanding of what they need. So
right. I have evolved a little. I still cringe when I use the word help, but it just seems like a word that everyone understands. But but yeah, it's not helping, it's partnering.
Yeah.
I'd probably say the one thing that I know a lot of community, they already know. They already know what they need. They already know what they want. But being aware and how to listen is like the main thing that will prevent a lot of harm. Being able to do, for example, listening sessions and hearing what the community needs and wants has been one of the benefits on this community side, especially when it comes to maternal health outcomes, improving them. So even with myself, I had to learn, you know, community already knows. The thing that I like to be able to add to what the community knows is options. Did you know there was research about placenta encapsulation and placentaphage? Did you know is pretty much even how I walk into community so they can tell me what they know and what they don't know. So they can tell me what they want and what they don't want. So even, like I say, even being in the community, I had to listen, and I still listen to what they want. All communities are like I guess people say, I guess it's a cliche, you know, everybody's not a monolith. So just because I'm here in North Carolina, it might not be the same information and wants and desires when I listen to people in Mississippi. So really, truly putting on that hat of listening, not to have the objective to answer and reply, but really listening for the facts and information that they want and being ready to deliver and give them what they want, as well as the options that they might not know about. That's kind of how helping or not hurting or doing harm really works in communities. And I found that that's another way you build trust, and build up those relationships through time, because it takes a while to really truly listen and to be able to respond back with that integrity, with those ethics. That's the long haul. That's the work that has to be done to really build.
Great. Thank you. All right. So as we wrap up, I believe we have time, right, Melanie, for some questions. I also wanted to put our contact information on here if you all are interested in learning more and collaborating, asking questions. So please feel free to either put things in the chat or unmute and ask if you have questions.
I do have one question about the MOU. And I do understand its importance, but are there points for which it gets to the place where you do need to have an MOU that does go through our university legal processes versus a more informal agreement with your community partner?
That sounds like a Christy question to me.
So, and I have talked with our legal about this before, and we've worked on trying to establish some sort of template MOU that kind of outlines roles and responsibilities. The last kind of information I got from them is if we're just talking roles and responsibilities, that does not necessarily need to be approved. But I think we should aspire to it. I think the more that we make our administration aware that these partnerships exist, then that's better. But if there's anything in there about like liability or anything like that, that definitely needs to be going through legal, because like there's some things about like you're not supposed to sign contracts, and forms and stuff like that on behalf of the university. So if it is just, something about your commitment of time and your commitment of activities, then I think that that's okay not to necessarily go through. But if it's anything more than that, it needs to be reviewed.
Okay, thanks for that. I appreciate the clarity.
Yeah. And I do need to follow up probably with legal about trying to get some sort of template that is at least something to start from.
And if you're submitting grant proposals and have like they're listed as a subcontractor, for example, then that also comes with some like legal agreements and things too that are worked into that. So there's also maybe less of a need for an MOU for a specific project then, because that's already kind of covered, is my understanding. I could be mistaken about that though.
Versus the relationship in general. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
I'll also say that one of the things that we've also worked out in terms of like MOUs and field placements and things like that is like when we're sending students out and they might need to work their roles and responsibilities with the community partner, then the student should be signing that, not necessarily the faculty member.
I have one question to Dr. Young.
Sure.
Yeah. I will work on the Hattiesburg mural all over the city for my master's dissertation. I have a plan to work on the survey by sitting on the field, not with the email spending survey that please fill up the form. I don't want to do this in this way. So I want to sit in public and I want to see their interest to fill up a survey regarding the Hattiesburg mural things, because I want to know their expression, what they think about their surroundings, how they feel with these mural things and all this thing. So what is the challenges to work in the public place or in a community surrounded area, like not in the one-to-one or not in a specific community person, but area with a community, lot of people from the community. So what is the strategies for the community in a public place? Do you have any suggestion for me, or what your strategy, or what is the experience for you?
Yeah, so if you're asking, you wouldn't have necessarily a community contact that you're working with to share this information, but you would recruit people as they're looking at different murals.
Yeah.
I would say, again, going back to that issue of trust and whether people want to share their like personal thoughts and information with a researcher, I would make sure that anything that you are asking them is not potentially harmful information or information they might be reluctant to provide that could connect them to their responses, for example, because you'll want them to feel like they're safe in sharing their views. I'm going to guess with your topic that you probably don't need to ask deeply personal questions. I would say designing your survey to be friendly and safe and not collecting personal information would increase your engagement. In terms of connecting with people in the community, that's probably also a Christy and ShLanda question, because I've never really recruited that way through a convenient sample in person. But how to approach community members maybe would be a question that you two could maybe help with.
Yes.
One of the things that I'm thinking of, like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're talking about murals is on a wall in the community. One of the first things I think of when I think of murals and art is, where are your local art galleries? Where are your local artists at in your community? Whether I don't know, we have different places here in town where the artists gather as a community. They have their own space where they do their their projects, and I would probably check out someplace like that in the community, because usually, whether it's a coffee shop or something like that, you usually have your artist in a local venue where they usually come together. So maybe that's some place that you can go to ask some more questions about the people that they work with in the community. But that's one of the first things that comes to my mind is, where are your local artists at? And they can probably help lead you to more of the people that love their work and express themselves, so you can connect with them.
This is why I need a community partner.
I love the art. I love the arts too. Like, and it's really one of those eclectic type, professions, and we need the arts. So I love that. Just find your people, find the tribe that really connects with the community in that way, and you will find your people.
We do have the Hattiesburg Arts Council, which does an arts market every Saturday, I'm pretty sure, at the old, the Community Arts Center downtown. They do an arts market. Lucky Rabbit, of course, does their first Saturday. That would be a great place to set up. And then Town Square Park, live at 5. Just maybe a table with like a folding chair. And a sign advertising what you're doing. People, as somebody who tables a lot, like to students, people are not going to approach you. You need to advertise what you're doing. And so a big sign that says, tell us what you think about the murals. And it could even be a QR code that they could scan and then fill out a form, or you could have clipboards with paper. So those are my suggestions.
I love those. See, this is why we need Christy. You need the whole team.
You do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our panelists?
Thank you for doing this.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we will conclude. Oh wait.
Laura, do you have a question?
Hi. Well, I would like to actually talk to the panelists kind of after the fact. I have a project I'm working on that I would like to talk to them about. So
we'll stay on.
Well, thanks for the rest of you for joining us. I really got a lot out of this as someone who is kind of new to community engaged work. And so thanks for joining us. I'll send some follow-ups, like we mentioned, the recording of the video in case you want to share it with colleagues or go back to some of these questions. And we'll include, I think Christy will send me the slides if you want that has the contact information for these panelists if you need to reach out again. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you again to our panelists.
All right.